Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about Middle-earth Quest, a strategy board game for 2 to 4 players, published by Fantasy Flight Games, designed by Cord Knitska and Christian Peterson. As you can see by the size of the board, it's an epic game. Takes about 3 hours probably, maybe a little longer on the first game, maybe a little shorter on subsequent games. It can be a little overwhelming, especially when you first break it out and see all these pieces. So I'm hoping that this rules primer video will help you teach the game easier and understand the basic concepts a little easier. It's certainly not going to substitute for a thorough reading of the rulebook, but it should give you a place to start. First I'm going to go over all the bits and pieces of the game, what they're used for, in kind of a high level. And then we're going to go over the victory conditions, how each side wins, and then we'll go through the turn order. And finally I want to talk about some of the systems in the game like combat and movement, and also damage and stuff like that. So in general, this is a game set in Middle-earth, and it's set between the events of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings generally. It's actually set between when Bilbo has his birthday party and when Frodo leaves the Shire on his quest. One player is going to play as Sauron, and the other players are each going to take the role of a hero. There won't be heroes from the actual books. They're more kind of generic type heroes that might exist in Middle-earth. The idea is that as the Sauron player, you're setting out these plots and trying to get the ring, trying to find the location of the ring, trying to overwhelm the defenses of the West and stuff like that. You're also moving around monsters. You also have minions that you control. And basically your goal is to succeed in these plots so that you can eventually win the game. The other players are going to be playing these heroes, as I said, and their main goal is to disrupt the plots of Sauron and get Gandalf to the Shire and get the ring started and basically bring about the destruction of the ring through the usual trilogy that we know and love. So let's talk about some of the components of the game. Okay, so I'm going to go over the pieces and bits of the game, and I'm going to start by looking at the individual hero cards and the components that each hero player will get. Then I'm just going to go around the board kind of clockwise and discuss each part. A lot of this won't really make perfect sense at this point, but we'll get clearer as we go through the turn order and how you win and all that stuff. So don't worry if some of the terminology doesn't make sense at this point. So let's start with the heroes. You can see I think there's actually 5 or 6 heroes. I can't remember exactly. But at most you're going to have 3 of them out in each game because one player is going to play Sauron, sorry. Okay, let's see. Hopefully this is focusing on that. Each player gets this card, the name of your character, your special ability, your fortitude score, which is how many cards you're going to draw every turn, basically. Your strength is used in combat, determines how many cards you can play, or actually the strength of the cards that you play in combat. Agility shows how many additional cards you draw at the beginning of combat, and wisdom is, for one thing, it's used to determine if locations are perilous. For another thing, it's also used in certain situations in the event cards, which we'll see later, or the location cards, sorry. Each hero is going to get his own individual deck of cards, and you can see these are specific to each hero. Let me see if I can get this to, yeah, and it has a picture of the hero there. We'll look at cards in more detail later. This is just kind of a current player token. It's an optional thing that you can pass around to remind yourself who the current player is. And then each player gets a random starting quest and then a face down advanced quest. And you can see, well, you might not be able to see, but as the reward of each of these quests is to turn over the advanced quest. So you can't look at that or complete that until after you've completed your starting quest. Quests basically, they're all different, but basically they give you a location on the board that you're trying to get to and explore or defeat somebody at that location, and then you will get a reward of some kind for that quest. Kind of gives you something to do at the start of the game. You can also see on these hero cards that the spaces are labeled, each side of the card is labeled life pool, rest pool, and damage pool. And so basically your stack of cards is also your life points. So you're going to have some cards in your hand, then you're going to use some of those cards to travel, and when you do, those are discarded into your rest pool, like so. And then at certain points in the game, you're going to be able to rest when you're in a free people stronghold, and then you'll be able to shuffle those cards back into your life pool. During combat, you're going to, and sometimes other times, you're going to take damage, in which case cards will go over here by the damage pool, and those cards are not shuffled back into your deck when you rest, but only shuffled back in your deck when you heal. And if at some point all of your cards are either in the rest pool or in the damage pool, and you don't have any cards in your hand, then you're defeated, and some things happen. And you end up going back to a safe location, and it's generally not a good thing. Okay, I'm going to start going around the board. Starting, well, let me give you a zoomed out shot of the board. Then I'm going to start down here at the bottom and go around clockwise. These are corruption cards. During certain cards and stuff will cause a hero to draw a corruption card. These will be played out next to the hero and usually do bad things to that hero. In this example, it says your agility is reduced by 1. And there's also a marker on here that says 2. If you heal and can discard 2 favor, that's a little favor marker, then you can get rid of this card, and those bad things won't apply to you anymore. And I can't pick up the card. There. This is the peril deck. When you go to a location that's perilous, when a hero goes to a location that's perilous, they will have to draw a card from here, and it just does various things. This is the influence pool. These are influence markers that the Sauron character will move around the board, and it lets them do different things. It lets them make a location perilous and stuff like that. This little area lists each of the minions that Sauron has. He starts with the Black Serpent and the Mouth of Sauron actually out on the board. Here's one of them. And then when the markers on the track get to the certain stages, stage 2 and stage 3, he gets to bring out the rest of these awesomely detailed miniature guys. Look at these Nazgul, aren't those awesome? I mean, really, that's pretty cool. And then there's the Witch King. So actually printed on the board, this icon shows which combat deck that minion's going to use when they fight. Here's their fortitude and strength and wisdom, all similar to the heroes, a little bit different. And then they all have a special ability as well, and then they have a starting location and a number of health points that they have. And these little symbols you find all over the place in the game, and those will tell you, that just kind of gives you a hint of where these locations are, in case you're not, a Middle-earth fanatic, which can be a real challenge finding some of these places. Most people have no idea where Near Harad is, so these kind of give you just a hint of where to start looking for those places. So each of the minions have one of those. Over here, these are called, what are they called? Encounter decks, yes. So each of these are keyed to a certain area. And when a hero explores that location, they're going to draw one of these. Very similar to Arkham Horror, if you've ever played that. And things are going to happen. You might have to make a wisdom test. You might get good stuff. You might get bad stuff. That sort of thing. Here is a handy turn reference, which is nice, printed right on the board. This space is for the current event card. I have the event cards over there. This little token will be put on the location on the board where that event is affecting. Up here we have the favor and character area. This is where the character tokens live. The favor tokens live, and the characters when they're not on the board. You can see the characters are famous characters from the Lord of the Rings. These will be placed by quests and by cards and stuff. You can see I've got Aragorn has already been placed by I think it's by this starting quest for Argalad. It said place Aragorn in the South Eaves. So the characters can go to these locations and interact with these characters in different ways. Usually they'll give them favor, but it depends on the situation and what those characters can do. Here's the board itself. You can see some of these are strongholds. Some of them are marked as strongholds. Some of them are marked as shadow strongholds, which have, let me see, where's one of those? Oh, Barad-dûr. See, it has a black tower on them. And then some of these are permanently perilous, like Moria has the border that means they're always perilous no matter what your wisdom is. And then some of them are just regular old locations. Up here is the track. Oops, sorry, knocked over an elf. Is the track. We're going to talk about this a lot when we look at the victory conditions. Basically, one of these markers is for the free people, the hero characters, while the other three are markers for the Sauron player. And they're all going to travel down the track. When they jump into another stage, then that changes the event cards that you're going to draw, and also what minions Sauron has out. And then when a marker gets to the finale space, we're going to initiate the finale, which we'll talk about later. Up here, this is Sauron's starting mission card. It's a secret mission that will determine what he needs to do to win the game, basically. He has one, and the other side has one. The free players have one. These are the monster reference cards for the monster tokens. It has pretty much the same stuff that the minions have. They're specific to each monster. When you pull a monster token out and start fighting, you're going to have to dig through this deck to find that reference card. These are those monster tokens. Some of these are blank, like that one. It's almost like I planned that. And then some of them are actual monsters. Sauron will place these around the board, and then the heroes will have to deal with them when they enter that space. These are the combat decks for the monsters and the minions. The little red dots basically mean melee, and the blue dots mean ranged. So you can see that some monsters, have more melee cards. Some of them have more ranged cards. Each monster is going to show what deck they use when they fight, just like each minion down here shows which deck they use when they fight. These are the event cards separated into stage 1, 2, and 3. These basically just make various characters appear, favor appear, and different things happen. You can't have a board game without event cards. This is Sauron's starting hand. You actually don't start a hand, but you do start with one random starting plot out, and when you follow the setup instructions of this plot, it tells you to draw so many shadow cards and so many plot cards. This area is the plot area for the Sauron player, and he starts. Plots basically determine which of his tokens are going to move down the track and how fast. So you start with one starting plot out, and then you start with some starting plot cards. Plot cards basically these are nefarious plans that you're trying to get done. Like in this case, you're trying to kill loss of an heir, and each plot's going to have a place that it affects. Like for my starting plot, it affects the Sea of Aduin, which is right here, and it has a marker, upside down marker, a marker that shows where that plot is affecting. If the heroes go to this location, they can disrupt the plot and remove it from this board. And then you can play plot cards. Sauron basically is going to want to play the best plot cards so that he can get his markers to move quicker and win the game faster. So you can have 3 plot cards out. You can also discard a plot card if you want to play another plot card. This is the plot card deck. Each location, of course, has a little token that shows what location that's affecting. These are the Sauron action tokens, and this is the Sauron action area. Basically, each turn, Sauron, the Sauron player, is going to get 3 of these, and is going to be able to place them on the leftmost location on one of these areas. This area will let him place influence, which we'll talk about later, but that's basically putting influence tokens in an extension of a shadow stronghold. And then this one lets you draw shadow cards, which we'll talk about in a minute, and play plot cards. And this one will let you move the minions and bring on monster tokens. And you can see that he puts these out here like so, always putting them on the leftmost one. And so now on the next turn I can put it here, but I only get 4 influence, only gain 4 influence, where before I was able to gain 5 and 6. Or I could put it here and I get to move 3 minions, or I could put it here and I get to draw 2 shadow cards. So you can see that the more of a one type of action that he does, the less returns, kind of a diminishing returns thing. So, and then once I place the 4th one, I get to pick up the other 3, and then keep doing that. This is the shadow pool area. You're going to be placing influence into the shadow pool on these spots. This means that in age 1, or stage 1, I believe is how it's called, you can have 4, but by stage 2 you can have 8, and by stage 3 you can actually have 12. The shadow pool, the number of tokens in the shadow pool determines what kind of shadow cards you can play. Let me show you an example. These are shadow cards. These are cards that the Sauron player is going to have and going to play to do bad things to the heroes. And each one of these cards, you can see this one has a 7 on the little influence icon. That means to play this card, I have to have 7 tokens in the shadow pool. Now to get tokens in the shadow pool, I'm going to want to play my little action tokens on this gain influence step. In this case, I get to gain 6 influence because I put it on the 6. And I may place up to 2 of those in the shadow pool, and then the rest an extension of my stronghold. So I could put 2 on here, and now I can play shadow cards, from my hand that have 2 on there. Which in this case, there's one that an evil fog only requires 1. So that's basically what the shadow pool does. And we'll talk about that a little bit more, as well as we'll go into a little more detail about these Sauron actions. So I talked about this. These are shadow cards, and these are actually. This is the discard pile for the shadow cards. And now we've made it through the board. There's just a couple more things I missed before for the hero section. These are item cards. There's an elven cloak, a boat, a horse. These basically give special abilities to the heroes, and you gain these by completing quests or getting lucky on card draws and that sort of thing. These are skill cards. The back looks just like a typical hero deck, but these are better, more powerful, and you get these by training. Actually, some characters on the board, if you visit them, they will give you training, and you get to draw one of these cards or select one of these cards, and then you shuffle it into your regular deck. These are little upgrade tokens. Sometimes a hero will gain a level, and there's a lot more of these. I only picked out a few, but then you'll actually put this me show you. So, do I have one here? Wisdom, strength. Well, let's just say Eleanor trained strength a lot. She went to the gym a lot, and she went from a strength 5. Now I'm a strength 7. Do you see that? That makes sense. And then finally, these are just damage tokens. During combat, you're going to do damage to either minions, in which case you'll put it there, or monsters, in which case you'll put it there. Okay, so I might have missed something, but I think I got most of the components. Next, we're going to talk about how each side can win the game. Okay, to win the game, each side has to do 2 things. First of all, they have to get their marker. In the case of the good guy players, it's this tree. In the case of the Sauron player, it's one of these 3 markers, either the ring, I think it's called the plot. I don't remember what they're called, but anyway, one of these 3. So each side has got to get their marker to the finale space, and the second thing they need to do is complete their secret mission card. For example, this one says to find them all. This is the Sauron mission card. Sauron wins if he has either the ring wraiths or 6 influence in the Shire. So if Sauron is able to get one of his markers to the finale space before the Free People players do, and he's completed this objective, he wins the game. Alternatively, if the Sauron player gets all 3 of his markers past this space that's marked here, called the Shadow Falls space, if he's able to get all 3 of them, for example, one could be there, one could be there, when this one moves here, that's going to also trigger the finale, and if he's completed his objective, then he wins the game. So what's going to happen is one of the markers is going to hit the finale space, or all 3 of these are going to hit the Shadow Falls space, and then we're going to say, okay, who's dominant? Well, if it were something like this, the dominant player or dominant side is the one that has the marker that's further along. So in this case, we say, okay, the finale has been triggered. The Free People are dominant. What's the Free People's mission card? Well, it says the heroes win if there are no more than 2 monster tokens in play. So are there more than 2 monster tokens in play? No? Okay. Well, they win. Now what if they failed their mission? There are 3 monster tokens in play. They didn't complete their mission. Then it comes down to a final battle. So the hero players are going to pick one character, and they're going to do battle against the Nazgul. If they are able to defeat the Nazgul, the ring wraiths, then they win. The Free People player wins. If they are not able to defeat them, then Sauron wins. So just to recap, you want to get your marker to the end first, and you want to complete your objective. If you get your marker to the end first and you haven't completed your objective, then it goes down to a final battle. If by some strange effect both people end up on the finale at the same, both sides end up on the finale at the same time, then it comes down to did either side complete their mission, and if one side completed their mission and the other did not, then they're going to win the game. So it sounds confusing. It's not really that bad. You just got to keep in mind you want to get to the finale first, but you also want to complete your mission. Okay, let's look at the turn order of the game.